And Kentucky Congressman and House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer leading yesterday's closed-door hearing. It's our pleasure to welcome him back to National Report. Mr. Chairman, good morning, and always good to see you, as always. We do appreciate that for coming on. There's so many questions about this. As we mentioned, Klain didn't invoke his Fifth Amendment rights. Other colleagues did. Can you give our viewers this morning some takeaways, at least from what you've learned, not only from Klain not taking the Fifth, but some of the answers that were given to you, sir?
Well, first of all, I appreciate Ron Klain coming in. He answered all of our questions. He never once tried to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights. He never tried to invoke executive privilege, which had, by the way, been waived by President Trump. So he answered the questions. And, we call this the auto pen investigation, but it's more than that. It's about trying to determine whether or not Joe Biden had any idea what was going on with respect to the use of the auto pen. Was he mentally fit to even make decisions? And we asked Ron Klain a lot of those questions because Ron Klain was one of the ones that, according to the Jake Tapper book, was the one coaching Joe Biden in the disastrous debate, which led to his eventual dropping out of the presidential race. So, what Klain said with respect to Joe Biden's mental fitness was that he admitted that Joe Biden his memory had deteriorated a little bit, that that he wasn't as sharp, but he felt like Joe Biden was still competent to be president of the United States. We asked questions about the revelation that Hunter Biden made with respect to Joe Biden was on Ambien the night of the debate. And he acted like he didn't know anything about it. But, he gave us some valuable information as we move forward. We're moving up the organizational chart. He was the former chief of staff. We're going to get to the people that we think were the ones who are actually calling the shots around Joe Biden. So it was a good transcribed interview, and I appreciate him coming in.
I mean, this is what you would hope to see from either side of the aisle, just a sort of willingness to play ball, a mutual respect. And it begs the question, why does these other aides plead the Fifth? Is there something to hide? I mean, even if there is nothing to hide, it definitely looks suspicious. But with Ron Klain specifically, I know that you were so appreciative that he answered your questions. And I'm wondering, did he give any indication? Was there ever a moment during his time in the White House where he, is looking back now thinking, oh, man, I maybe should have caught that mental decline, or there was something that I could have done more to have been more forthcoming about the president's state?
Well, it was interesting that he said that he had anxiety prior to the debate, that Joe Biden had a practice round or two, and he did terrible in those practice rounds. I think he had to say that because that's mentioned in Jake Tapper's book. So one thing that's making this investigation easier is that former Biden aides and staffers are writing tell-all books. So there's a lot of evidence in circulation now, and more evidence that's going to emerge in the coming months. Now, we asked him why he thought that some of his staffers would invoke the Fifth Amendment, especially on questions, simple questions like, were you ever told to lie about Joe Biden's health? And 3 of his former staffers invoked their Fifth Amendment rights to avoid self-incrimination. We asked him about that, and he said he had no idea, hadn't even thought about it. So, he was pretty careful. He's a fairly intelligent guy, but at the end of the day, everyone in America knows that Joe Biden wasn't at the top of his game. Joe Biden admitted to the New York Times that he just delegated the pardon authority to staffers. That's completely illegal and puts all of these pardons in jeopardy. But we're looking in on these executive orders as well. And the auto pen was used 75% of the time when Joe Biden was supposedly in the White House. That makes absolutely no sense. All he had to do is sign his name, but yet they used the auto pen, which leads one to believe that Joe Biden was a figurehead. He was being protected from his inner staff and his cabinet secretaries by a select few. Nothing has emerged in this investigation that
Yeah.
would say otherwise.
Let me ask you this, because I'm curious about a post you put out on X commending Representative Robert Garcia for being bipartisan. This is your words. In one of his first official acts as ranking member of the Oversight Committee by voting to subpoena Bill and Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, Merrick Garland, Robert Mueller, William Barr, Jeff Sessions, and Alberto Gonzales. Major names there. I'm curious, maybe why you would want to hear from Bill and Hillary Clinton specifically, and some of the others that you mentioned in that post, and will subpoenas go out to those folks?
Well, we already took the lead in the Epstein investigation. That was something that came out a few days earlier. I issued a subpoena for Maxwell on August 11th. That's when I'll be traveling to the federal prison in Tallahassee to sit down and hopefully depose her. So we're taking the lead in it. Well, Garcia wanted to be cute. He just got to be ranking member. So they try to file more motions to subpoena more people and get more information on Epstein. Scott Perry and Nancy Mace amended their motion to include subpoenas for both Bill and Hillary Clinton and James Comey and everyone that would have had any knowledge of the whole Epstein ordeal, and they voted for it. I don't think they really understood what they were voting for, so that was a bipartisan vote to subpoena Bill and Hillary Clinton. I'm sure Garcia's in the doghouse with Hakeem Jeffries and George Soros and Barack Obama right now, but we are going to proceed and do that because that was a bipartisan vote by the House Oversight Committee. The mainstream media is still scratching their head over how Garcia could have allowed that to happen, but we're going to talk to everybody, and the American people are going to get the truth about what went on with Epstein, thanks in part because of the House Oversight Committee, and hopefully because President Trump and Pam Bondi will release what they have.
And now I'm curious to know your thoughts on Attorney Todd Blanche speaking with Galilea Maxwell, as I'm sure you know, and particularly asking her questions. The president was asked about that earlier, specifically if he would consider commuting a sentence for Galilea Maxwell, maybe in exchange for some or any information. He said he hasn't thought about it, but it's something that he could do. Would you support any commutation for Galilea Maxwell, for releasing any information? Do you have thoughts on Todd Blanche interviewing Galilea Maxwell right now?
Well, the conventional wisdom is she wants something in return for talking. The conventional wisdom would be some type of pardon or commutation. I don't know what that will be. I'm sure he's discussing that with her attorneys right now. I would be leery of pardoning Ms. Maxwell based on what she was found guilty on in federal court. That's something that, that's a slippery slope. But having said that, the American people want to know the truth. They want to know basic questions like who was on the Epstein list and was the federal government spying on Epstein Island and using that to blackmail some of these high-profile people. That's what the American people want. And that's why it's so controversial. The Republicans in the House, we strongly support President Trump, and we've accomplished a lot, passing the big, beautiful bill and the rescissions package and pretty much everything that President Trump sent to the Congress, the U.S. House of Representatives, have passed just on a partisan basis, just by Republicans. But this situation here, we hear from our constituents back home. They want to know the truth about the Epstein files. And I think they're going to get the truth. President Trump has pledged that he's going to disclose what they have, and the House Oversight Committee is going to go in, and we're going to depose every single person that we feel was a part of that, and turn that information over to the American people.
All right, we'll watch for that. We do appreciate you being very candid and open with us here on this Friday for our viewers. That is Chairman James Comer joining us of the Oversight Committee. Congressman, good to see you as always. Enjoy your weekend.